Welcome to another edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up. During this program, we will highlight the agenda items presented to the Lakeville City Council at their February 17th, 2015 meeting. First highlighted item on the agenda is item number 7, Resolution Approving Environmental Assessment Worksheet. And to provide the background information on this agenda item is Community and Economic Development Director Dave Olson.
Council is somewhat familiar with this project. It's been reported on both Twin Cities regional media sources as well as our local media sources. But this is a development project that we're working with Scannell Properties, which has the what I always referred to as the one of the Stepka Farm properties right at the southwest corner of Dodd Boulevard and County Road 70. It's this entire 176 acres. And project you just approved in the consent agenda, the FedEx Freight project, for example, is right here, and this is the Uponor distribution facility located in First Park. And then this southerly line represents the border between the city of Lakeville and Eureka Township, so it's actually at our most southern border. Because of the size of this project, and it's just similar to what we did 5 or 6 years ago on the other side of Dodd when First Park development first came forward, it's required under the EQB rules to go through an environmental approval process. And the first step in that process is what is called a scoping EAW. And what the scoping EAW did was to try and identify the issues that needed to be studied in greater detail as part of the AUAR, which is also known as the Alternative Urban Area-Wide Review Process. And AUAR is in lieu of and a substitute to the full-blown EIS, Environmental Impact Statement, also known as EIS process. And it's a little bit less cumbersome and a little bit more of a streamlined process. And it's similar to what we did across the road 6 years ago, and so it's the process that's being undertaken now. The property is zoned and planned for in the comprehensive plan consistent with what the development is being proposed, and the scoping EAW and the AUAR, which is going to be a more detailed analysis, is going to look at two different development scenarios. The first development scenario on the screen or on your screens is what they're referring to as the scenario number 1, and that is where there'd be 9 buildings built, similar in size, and again, this is all conceptual because until there's a user identified and a company that's committed to go in there, they don't know exactly what building is going to be exactly what size. But this, basically in the environmental review process, the intent is to analyze the most intense development of the site that the zoning and the city's development guidelines would allow, and thus look at the environmental impacts based on that. The other scenario that's going to be studied was identified in the scoping EAW and will be studied and looked at in more detail is scenario number 2, and this identifies 2 very large type buildings, would likely be distribution facilities, both in excess of 1 million square feet each. And there's a couple of larger projects that are looking at the Twin Cities metropolitan area right now, larger national distribution type projects that build buildings of this size. So it changes a few things. This could be upwards of 3 million square feet. The earlier one that was on showing the multiple smaller buildings is about 2.2 million square feet. So the AUAR is going to look at both and what their impacts are. And as you saw in the review comments that were included in the packet, the main issues that will be looked at and studied in more in-depth through the AUAR is the impact on the transportation system via Dodd, County Road 70, the I-35 County Road 70 interchange. And then also there are, just as there were across the street, you can see where the wetlands that were preserved and identified in the First Park Lakeville project 5-6 years ago. We've got some similar wetland areas, but also some areas then that will be able to be incorporated into the stormwater management. So those are the issues that are going to be looked at in depth. There will be opportunity for public comment as well as review agency comment through the AUAR process. It will be brought back through the council, so all we're doing tonight is basically taking the next step in the environmental review process, which is council's being asked to accept the EAW and to allow the developer to proceed with the AUAR review on this 176-acre parcel. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Item number 7 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda is item number 8, resolution authorizing submittal of the 2015 Community Development Block Grant application. And once again, to provide the background information on this agenda item is Community and Economic Development Director Dave Olson.
This one, there will be a little, as City Administrator Miller pointed out, there's some new information, but Jim, if you could, we'll go ahead with the overhead. But this is an annual event in January or early February. The council is asked to basically approve the CDBG program for the city for the coming year. Dakota County is an entitlement county under the HUD-funded CDBG program where they get a allocation every year, and then the county has a formula in which they keep some of the money for some county initiatives, but then they also have a distribution whereby a little over half of the annual allocation gets allocated to individual cities in the county to do activities and projects which they feel are a priority or a need in their community. And so there are activities and programs that we are proposing for 2015 that have been and kind of a carry-on or a continuation, I should say, of programs that have been in existence for a while. One of which, and it's the first item that's listed under there, under the 2015 program activities, and that's housing rehab. It's a program that's administered by the Dakota County CDA, whereby homeowners that are meet certain income guidelines are able to apply for and get approval of funding of what ends up being a deferred loan to make necessary improvements to their home. Typically, it's energy-related improvements, furnaces, windows. It also can be roof, siding, and those type of, sometimes it's plumbing and electrical upgrades that need to be made. But that's a program that's been around a long time, and it's successful. It's administered by the county. The county puts some money in a county pot for that, but if we want to make provide additional assurance that we have funds that are dedicated specifically for Lakeville, we have now for probably at least 5 years been putting a portion of our allocation towards that, so that those are, in addition to countywide funds, there's an assurance that there's an amount going to be available as city funds as well. I should also point out that one of the reasons we do that is that the county requires and the HUD requires that at least half of the money that we allocate every year for CDBG funds be done and used for programs that benefit low, moderate income households. And this one automatically does that. And so we're required to put 50% of our allocation, at least 50% of our allocation into that type of activity. And so we, for a number of years now, the city staff has recommended, council's approved roughly 50% or more of our allocation going into this program. So it's a good program. It's administered by the CDA. It helps keep housing stock in Lakeville from deteriorating in certain areas and allows homeowners to access affordable housing financing for home improvements. The way the program works is that the funds are not repaid until the property is sold or transferred. So it's a deferred loan, but it sits out there, and it becomes kind of a revolving fund as well, because as these properties turn over, the amount of those rehab loans comes back into the pool for Lakeville for future home improvement or home rehab loans. Another activity that we've just funded for the first time last year is ADA compliance. We did a significant project to City Hall, which I personally think was a much needed and probably overdue improvement to this building to allow for better access. We put in power assisted doors at all the entrances to City Hall now, so that someone that's in a wheelchair or has other mobility issues can both for the public and as well as for employees get easy access into our building. With the increased popularity of absentee voting, we had more and more instances where we had people certain times of the year on certain years coming in and in some cases people that had accessibility challenges So that was a successful project and probably a overdue project, and we'd like to continue to do more. That was a fairly expensive project because we had to change the whole security system to the building too at the same time. We put in those power assist doors and went from a card reader system instead of the old key system we had. But we're recommending $20,000. As you recall, Wold Architects did an analysis of all of our buildings, and we've tried to get a hierarchy or prioritization of other buildings that need other types of ADA improvements. We'll hopefully complete those with these additional funds as well. One that's been in the system or the program for a number of years, but unfortunately we haven't had a lot of activity in, and that is the Downtown Code Improvement Program. I should show the old map first. We started this program a number of years ago. When I first started with the city, it was one of the first projects I worked on was the renovation of the Ben Franklin building downtown. We used the CDBG program. It was under different ownership at the time, but basically redid the facade. The Smith Dental building was done, benefited from this program, as was the VFW while it was still being operated as such. But this is the area basically up and down Holyoke Avenue that we previously identified, one block in either direction, that was previously eligible for the program. And it's the Downtown Special Service District boundary, and quite honestly, we haven't gotten, we've looked at and talked to a couple building owners, but there hasn't been enough interest or activity just limited to this geographic area for the program. So it is staff's opinion that if we're going to keep this program available, we have to broaden the area in which it may be available. So what was sent out in your packets last Friday was the map of what is known as the Downtown Redevelopment Project Area that was created a number of years ago by the city, in which we've done TIF projects in the past in the downtown. It was an area that was identified for redevelopment, and it's the downtown core plus some of the surrounding neighborhoods. We were proposing to use that. We've gotten some general inquiries of some other commercial building owners or people looking to buy commercial buildings outside of the Holyoke corridor that were in possibly in need of this program. So we've expanded it. After we sent this information out on Friday, Councilmember Anderson inquired about the feasibility or the possibility of extending along County Road 50 or Kenwood Trail a little bit further to include, there is a commercial area there that, as your council's aware, we're working with property owners now because of the planned County Road 50 improvements out there, and may have some impact on the impact of the location of, for certain, some of the parking lots for those businesses, but in one or two cases might even involve buildings having to be relocated in that area. So in checking with the CDA, there's no limit or restriction. It's only basically the determination of the city of where they'd like to make this program available. So based on that, we are recommending that the commercial areas along County Road 50, just west of Icenic, on either side of Kenwood Trail, County Road 50, also be included. And so it would be our recommendation to revise the proposed commercial rehab area to include that little small commercial area as well. And then finally, the last activity that we'd like to, and this was in consultation with Mr. Kennan and City Administrator Miller about the next step in terms of Envision Lakeville and some additional planning that may be needed for that. And planning studies are actually one of the easier and fit nicely into this program to be funded with CDBG. It doesn't add a lot of red tape, if any, to that type of project. And so not knowing exactly what some of the next implementation steps for Envision Lakeville, and my understanding is there's a council work session coming up on, or I don't know, what are you calling it? It's not a work session. Retreat. An all-day work session on that event. And so it was identified since nothing was put in the general fund budget for that we allocate an additional $10,000 for that. So that rounds out the $124,000 that we're anticipated to receive in 2015. The calendar, or the fiscal year for the program basically doesn't have these funds becoming available until July of this year. They run on the and it's all still subject to a final appropriation by Congress for the HUD budget for the CDBG program. So that is our recommendation as staff. It was reviewed and recommended at the last EDC meeting as well. We brought that back to them because of the changes. We were doing some more economic development type activities, and primarily consisting of expanding the code improvement program. For a couple of years, we were just doing city type projects with this program and not really adding any new funding to economic development type activities. But the downtown code improvement program and expanding the area in which that is eligible to be used now, as well as the Envision Lakeville are more along the line of economic development activities. So we brought it through the EDC, and they unanimously recommended approval at their January meeting. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Item number 8 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda is item number 9, resolution approving feasibility report and calling public hearing for Hamburg Avenue street improvements. And to give the background information on this agenda item is Operation and Maintenance Engineer Monica Heil.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for having me here tonight. We're here discussing the Hamburg Avenue Improvement Project. And as you recall, the project spans along Hamburg Avenue from Lakeville Boulevard south down to 220th Street and does cross the intersection with 215th Street or County Road 70. The estimated project costs, as identified in the feasibility report, are $579,255. Of that, approximately $288,000 are proposed to be funded using city CIP funds. An estimated $116,000 are proposed to be funded using Vermilion River Watershed District funds, which I'll talk about in more detail here in just a moment. And the remaining portion would be funded using special assessments to the benefiting properties along Hamburg Avenue with driveway access to Hamburg Avenue. When we talk about Hamburg Avenue and the type of improvements proposed, what we are looking at is a mill and overlay project. As we looked at the pavement ratings for this section of Hamburg Avenue, the overall condition index, or the OCI, which we use to make some of our capital improvement plan decisions regarding where our pavement projects will be located, this had an OCI value of 62. And at a value of 62, we would be proposing some maintenance to extend the useful life of the roadway. So with the project, we'd be milling the top surface of the pavement, routing and sealing any existing cracks within the base pavement layers, installing leveling courses where we have some rutting issues, mainly at the intersections, and also doing some shoulder rehabilitation work where you can see a little bit in this picture where some of the turning movements by the trucks has caused them to degrade the edge of the pavement surface along Hamburg Avenue. In addition, we would also look to address some drainage concerns within the existing roadway ditches. We did hold a neighborhood meeting for this project back in November. By and large, the majority of the comments we received had to do with the drainage along this section of Hamburg Avenue. There is standing water, as you can see in this picture, which was taken in December of this past year, nearly year-round, and that impedes drainage through the remainder of the channel all the way down to South Creek. The driveway culverts in this portion of the project, which happens to be just south of the intersection with Lakeville Boulevard, a number of them are buried beneath sediment deposits. You can see in this photo the sediment that's traveled through the culverts over time has really hindered drainage to the base of the culvert. Additionally, the edges of the culverts have been crushed by truck traffic coming through the driveway areas. So as a part of the improvements, we'd be looking to replace the culverts and also excavate some of the sedimentation that's deposited in the ditch section to improve drainage conditions within this project. The Vermilion River Watershed District has been in discussions with the city about grant opportunity to fund a portion of the improvements. With the Vermilion River, we would be proposing to install an infiltration trench, which would both improve the rate at which water left the ditch, alleviating some of the standing water issues that you can see in this picture, but also improving the water quality entering into South Creek by infiltrating the water rather than just sending it through the ditch sections to the creek directly. There was a similar project completed in Farmington in which the Vermilion River Watershed District worked with Independent School District 192 in the city of Farmington at Bachman Middle School for a stormwater retrofit. They had a similar ditch section that was poorly draining and held water for extended periods of time. In this photo, you can see that the contractor installed a very narrow trench at the bottom of the ditch. They removed the excessive sediment and topsoil at the bottom of the ditch, replaced it with a quick draining sand filtration media, and then seeded over it and sodded it in portions to make it a mowable, maintainable trench area. The result was during a rainfall event, you still saw water traveling through the ditch section for a period of time. But according to the Watershed District, this new system infiltrates within a period of 6 hours, making it more realistic for property owners to maintain this as the water moves away from a surface and infiltrates into the ground below. That is something we'll continue to work with Vermilion Watershed District with through the final design of the project to determine the total grant amount. The estimated assessments for the project are $9.08 per front foot. As you'll recall, the city's assessment policy dictates that in commercial and industrial areas, assessments are calculated on a front foot assessment rate. Those properties that do have driveway access onto Hamburg Avenue or could develop to have driveway access onto Hamburg Avenue would have assessments levied against them for the improvements. As this is a mill and overlay improvement project and not a reclamation or complete reconstruction project, the assessment period would be for 10 years. Looking forward, we're here tonight to present to you the feasibility report and also set a public hearing date. With your permission, we'd set that public hearing date for March 16th, and following the project's public hearing, potentially order the project. We would look to open bids and calculate the final assessment amounts for this project in late April in conjunction with the Kensington Boulevard improvement project that we'll discuss next. We would look to hold the assessment hearing at the beginning of June, award a construction contract, and allow a contractor to complete this work during the summer months, June through September. Of particular note along the Hamburg Avenue improvement project is the fact that some of these businesses do operate 6 and 7 days a week. So determining a construction schedule that will satisfy their trucking and access needs will be of the utmost importance. And so following the bid opening and the award of a contract, there will need to be some coordination between the property owners and the city to make sure that access needs are met with the contractor during construction. Following construction, we would be certifying the assessments to the county later this year. And with that, before you, you have a resolution moving to accept the feasibility report and also set the public hearing date for March 16th. And with that, I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Item number 9 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda is item number 10, resolution approving feasibility report and calling a public hearing for Kensington Boulevard street improvements. And once again, to provide the background information on this agenda item is Operation and Maintenance Engineer Monica Heil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Similar to the Hamburg Avenue improvement project, we also took a look at the Kensington Boulevard improvement project as a part of our 2015 pavement management program. And this project is identified between 205th Street and a point just south of 210th Street, where the improvements along Kensington Boulevard terminated with the County Road 70 improvements. This portion of Kensington Boulevard was included in the city's capital improvement plan, most notably because some of the pavement tenting issues that are visible during the winter months. If you've driven on this section of Kensington Boulevard, you've no doubt felt some of the issues that I'm describing here, but pavement tenting is that movement of the pavement and the expansion of the joints during the winter months as a part of the freeze-thaw cycle. So that is something we do look to correct with this particular project. The estimated project costs are $898,240. Of that, it's estimated approximately $713,000 would be funded using city CIP funds, $63,000 would be funded using city utility funds, and special assessments would fund the remaining $121,000. And we look at Kensington Boulevard. We are proposing pavement reclamation for this particular project, and the reason being is the pavement tenting issues. Simply milling and overlaying the surface has been proved ineffective in addressing pavement tenting issues. They will reflect through the new pavement surface and become visible again after as little as one winter. So we are looking to reclaim the existing bituminous surface, mix that with the existing aggregate base, and repave this section of Kensington Boulevard, similar to what we do within street reconstruction project areas. With the curb and gutter and the existing medians that are located along Kensington, we would only replace that portion of the curb and gutter that is structurally deficient. So unless there are cracks that you might note in the head of that median there that are causing standing water issues or causing the concrete to fail, we would leave everything else in place otherwise. We would install a new pavement section as a part of the improvements and also upgrade the ADA pedestrian ramps at each of the intersections for the trails. Streetlight improvements are also proposed as a part of the project. The existing streetlights that are located within the business campus portion of Kensington Boulevard are actually streetlights that were located on another city street that were repurposed and reused on this section of Kensington. However, there are a number of ongoing maintenance issues, both with the underground cabling and the light fixtures themselves, and these are some of the few remaining city-owned streetlights within the city. We would propose as a part of the project to remove these streetlights and replace them with a system that would be owned and operated by Xcel Energy moving forward, and this would provide us with light fixtures that are very similar to the other light fixtures that are located within the business campus areas throughout the city. Another opportunity to make some utility improvements with this project regards water main. And this is a picture of not something from Kensington Boulevard, but actually from our 2015 street reconstruction project area. And the reason I show this is because we did do some corrosivity testing along this section of Kensington and determined that the soils were moderately corrosive. Now, checking our break history and our maintenance records, we do not have any water main breaks recorded on this particular section of Kensington. It is 20-year-old water main pipe, but to date we have had no issues. With that in mind, we are recommending the installation of something called cathodic protection. And this is a picture of one such system where a sacrificial anode, which is what you see on the left-hand side of the picture, that little white bag there, is installed and connected to an existing water main pipe. What this does is it redirects some of the currents that are traveling through the soils and to the water main pipe to this anode and causes the anode to corrode before the water main pipe to which it's attached actually corrodes. So the installation of these anodes have proven effective in reducing the frequency of water main breaks and also extending the useful life of water main pipe. And so in this particular application where we have no break history and 20-year-old pipe, we would look to install something like this as a precautionary measure to extend the useful life of this water main until such time as Kensington Boulevard is completely reconstructed. The estimated assessments for the Kensington Boulevard improvements are $52.16 per front foot. Again, for those areas that are zoned for commercial or industrial use, the city's assessment policy is to calculate assessments on a front foot basis. The policy would also call, and past practice would call, for the assessment of properties with driveway access onto Kensington. And as you look at this portion of Kensington Boulevard, there are actually very few properties that have driveway access onto Kensington Boulevard. Many of them have access onto the side streets, and they would be assessed at the time those side streets would be improved. But the assessments did include the city park that is located along Kensington Boulevard, as it's been past practice to also assess city properties that have driveway access onto our city improvement projects. Because this is a reclamation project, we are proposing a 20-year assessment term in accordance with the city's assessment policy. Moving forward, this is the same schedule as we're proposing for Hamburg Avenue, as we would like to bid these projects in conjunction with one another. We would look to set a public hearing date for March 16th, open bids later this spring, have an assessment hearing for this project at the beginning of June, along with the Hamburg Avenue Improvement Project assessment hearing, and have the construction take place during the summer months, with assessments being certified later this year. And with that, you have a resolution before you to accept the feasibility report, set a public hearing date, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Item number 10 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Well, those were the highlighted items presented to the council at their February 17th, 2015 meeting. If you have any questions or comments regarding these agenda items, please feel free to call City Hall. The number is 952-985-4400. Thanks for watching this edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up.